Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Dragon Hunt video. So today we're continuing on walking down the classes, doing a deep dive on the heroes. And today we're kicking it off with Warrior. Now Warrior is one of the core 4 classes amongst Rogues, Assassin, and Elementals. These are the 4 key classes right now, just based on the gear dungeons, which I've talked about, in the past couple videos. In Mirage Abyss, you have, these dungeons that cater specifically to those individual classes. But when it comes to warriors, they do have their own dungeon, but I can honestly say that you can use warriors in every single part of the game. In my opinion, it is the most important class. It is the best class. So with that, these heroes are going to be valued a little bit higher. In all honesty, I think the developers probably need to balance this a little bit. The disparity between warrior and tanks is vastly different. The way that they have kind of designed these heroes in comparison to the warriors just is not even, which is kind of why no one really uses tanks, is because warriors fulfill the role of a tank, and then you also get some damage out of them. So they really need to rework the roles that tanks fill, I think. Or as the game progresses, maybe tanks will become a little more apparent, and we'll come to terms with where to use tanks. But as of now, I think warriors fill that role. So with that being said, let's jump into our review. Now, the first person we're going to talk about is Warren. Now, Warren technically isn't bad, but the problem is he's kind of just overshadowed by the rest of the other 4 warrior heroes, because all 4 of these heroes are actually really strong. So he's kind of a casualty of being in a important class of hero, while having really stiff competition. But anyway, let's talk about him anyway, okay? So he has this ultimate ability where he's able to, map out a type of area where he will dash to and hit anyone in his way and stun them. If you have his trait leveled up, it stuns them for 2 seconds. So having this ultimate that does 500% attack is a pretty good multiplier, and on top of that, it stuns. Now, the thing is, it's a smaller area than most stuns that we'll see in the game, whether it's, Natalie from the tanks, whether it's, Benson or Bobo, who we'll see later, or even Guan Yu. It is still a decent crowd control ability, and again, with a pretty high multiplier. So his active ability is dealing 260% attack, and then also the closer the enemy, it just does additional damage. So his multipliers are pretty decent. That's just a damage dealing ability. So here he deals 150% damage to enemies in a large area, so kind of like an AoE, and then he also gains shield. So he has self-damage mitigation, which is pretty nice. You upgrade his skills to have his shield be even bigger. And then here it says enemies impacted by the roar will enter the cowardice status. So this is something that the warrior class has specific to them. I touched on it briefly in the Demon Fortress dungeon guide that I have, where it kind of talks about the classes of individual heroes. So if you look at the class requirements, so class features, rogues have that fire synergy where, the more times that fire synergy stacks up on someone, they take more damage. Elemental has elemental marks, which we'll talk about in the video for elementals. And then Frighten is assassin, where warrior has cowardice. So warrior hero skills will inflict cowardice on targets. It decreases their attack and crit chance. So anytime you have a hero that has cowardice built into their kit, you're lowering the enemy's attack and crit chance. And then also, if you're attacking someone who has cowardice, you inflict bonus damage or other effects. So warriors kind of build off of each other, which is pretty nice. So that is cowardice. I did want to touch on that real quick for anyone who was wondering. So back to our boy Warren here. So yeah, his active ability enters people into cowardice, and it's kind of like an AoE for anyone who is around him. So this is a really strong ability as an active ability as well. So it's increasing the damage of your other warrior heroes, and then also decreasing the damage out of the enemy. So he does get a damage reduction passive as well as crit, and then his damage reduction goes up to 15% when he's a Moral 5. So he's pretty tanky, warrior hero with shield. He does not have any kind of healing, so you're going to have to bring in a support hero to keep him alive if he's your main tank. And then he does have a passive where his normal attack will generate a small shockwave near the target, dealing 60% attack damage to non-targeted enemies within range. And it just increases the damage of his shockwave. So, a tankier upfront hero with some crowd control and a way to inflict cowardice. So, again, not a bad hero, just kind of overshadowed. So let's take a look at his exclusive weapon. So he gains a stack of a Wave Realm each time he takes damage. So anytime he takes a hit, he's going to gain a stack of this Wave Realm. So Wave Realm can be triggered up to 2 times per second, and each stack of Wave Realm increases his armor by 1%. So his armor can go up 10% anytime he's hit. So it just makes him a little bit tankier. The maximum number of Wave Realm stacks goes up to 20, so he can get 20% increase in his armor. Pretty strong. When he takes damage from an enemy's ultimate, Warren gains an extra 5 stacks of Wave Realm. So this will beef up his armor quicker if somebody tries to ult him. Wave Realm can be triggered up to 5 times per second, and each stack of Wave Realm grants half a percentage attack. So with this upgrade to his weapon, not only is he gaining increased defense, but now he's getting more attack as well every time he's attacked. So he just kind of grows stronger and stronger. And then this one, the very last bonus to his equipment, is it increases his armor bonus granted by each stack to 1.5% for his armor and 1% of his attack. So again, a really big boost. Now, Warren is really going to need a healer, but if you compare him with a really good healer, maybe with some of the ones that we talked about yesterday, in the support group, he might be a decent, free-to-play option for you guys as your frontline tank if you don't have the funds to kind of build these other 2 heroes that we're going to be talking about here in a second. But that's Warren. All right, so next up is Bobo. Now, Bobo is actually kind of unique. He is a hero that you get for free, and he is the only hero in the game that is an SR, but he's treated as a rare when it comes to pulling him. So what I mean by that is if you go in the recruit phase, these standard scrolls that you get, if you take a look at the chance, he's treated as an SR, and he is an SR in the game. So he has the same pull rate as the other SRs here. But the game also gives you these shards, these rare hero shards. So you collect 10 of these to recruit 1 random rare hero. You can actually pull Bobo in this, so you can get his shards much quicker than other SRs in this game because you can actually pull him from there. So as you see here, I have 10 of him already from those rare shards. So that's kind of cool. So he's much easier to get and build. He's actually, at Immortal 3 for me. So I'm slowly building him, but he's very, very good. He should not be underrated. So his ultimate ability, he basically does this like whirlwind spin, and he damages a bunch of people, all around him. So it's an AoE, and he does this for 7 seconds, and his damage multiplier is very strong. Like, once it's booked out, look at the damage that does. 1500% of his attack, very strong. So also, while his ultimate is active, his movement speed increases by 50%, so you can kind of like move him around the field, which is pretty cool. And he takes 15% less damage. This effect is doubled if somebody is inflicted with cowardice. So if somebody has cowardice and he's attacking him, they're going to do 30% less damage to him, and he's going to increase his movement speed by 100%. So pretty cool. So his active ability increases his attack and his armor by 20% for 5 seconds. And this can be skilled up all the way to 15% and get 30% armor. If his trait is evolved up to a certain point, this increases to 7 seconds. So this is a really big boost to his stats, which is pretty nice. Here is kind of like a spinning attack as well, similar to his ultimate, but it inflicts knockback and vertigo to all enemies, so he has some built-in CC on the front line. His passive is an increase to crit and damage reduction whenever it's leveled up, and then he also has an ultimate damage boost increase by 15% whenever he is Immortal 5. He also has a passive that increases the damage per second of his Swirl of Water Dragon, which I believe is his ultimate, yes. So basically his Swirl of Water Dragon, it increases his damage the longer that Swirl of Water Dragon lasts, and this stacks, so his damage goes all the way up to 12% increase, and then it can even be increased to 4% up to 16%, and then you can even get more stacks of 6. So it goes up to, what, 24%? Stacking up to 4 times, 12, then 4, which is 16. Yeah, sorry. 24%. So yeah, pretty strong. Now, the thing is, Bobo does really good damage, but he is really hard to keep alive, especially on the higher ends of the game. So just keep that in mind. He's still a really great option, but you might have to really increase his talents and things like that to give him more health and armor to take advantage of, you know, some of his abilities that actually, you know, boost his armor and stuff like that. So let's take a look at his exclusive weapon here. So the first iteration of this, he casts Last Strike of the Swirl of Water Dragon to additionally unleash Surging Waves. So whenever he casts his ultimate, he shoots water out in all different directions, and it does 110% attack damage. So you're doing a big spinning AoE, and then you're also shooting water at people to deal additional damage on top of an ultimate ability that actually already does pretty good damage. So his water spouts then increase in damage to 200%, so almost double on the next upgrade. The increase the damage of Swirl of Water Dragon to 20%, so his ultimate gets a 20% damage boost, and then the last upgrade to his weapon is Water Spouts will inflict air kick to enemies, hit briefly, and then increase damage to 350% of his attack. So as you upgrade this, his ultimate ability will then add additional percentage on top of it with even wider range, and then inflict air kick, which is a type of crowd control. So yeah, like I said, fantastic hero. Just a little bit hard to keep alive, but very good in all areas of the game. Just like Warren, you know, these tanks are really important. I'll talk about team composition maybe right at the end, but your Bobo is going to be a different type of warrior than Warren is. Warren is more of a bruiser, where Bobo is just more of a damage dealing warrior. You should kind of treat him as just as an AoE, maybe even elemental, that you can put on the front line to, you know, pair well with Joan or Benson if you have him. So that's Bobo. Alright, so Joan is a free hero that you get after 7 days, and then you get her exclusive weapon, one copy of it, after the next 7. So in 14 days, you'll get a free copy of Joan and her exclusive weapon. So let's see what she does. So whenever the battle first starts, Joan puts a banner on the battlefield, and it grants everyone that's in the range of it by 10%. It gives them 10% turbo for 5 seconds at the beginning of the match, which is really cool. Then, when you actually cast her ultimate, what ends up happening is she heals everybody by 300% of her attack, and then grants them 10% turbo as well. So the first time that the battle starts, her ultimate kind of just automatically triggers, but you're only getting the 10% turbo. And then whenever you cast it for the second time, you're going to heal people, and then the turbo reapplies as well. So then what happens is that banner circle kind of stays on the field for 8 seconds, and during that time, all of your normal attacks from melee heroes are actually going to restore their health up to 100% of their attack. You can then upgrade her abilities to 400% healing of her attack. So instead of 300% of her attack, it'll be 400%. And then her trait gets an upgrade where whenever you place banners, warriors within the banner range get 15% straight damage boost and 30% movement speed for 5 seconds, which is a really huge buff to warriors. This is a really big trait upgrade. So you're helping everyone who's within your banner, but warriors get an added bonus if you have the trait upgraded. So her active ability, she deals 240% damage to enemies, kind of like as an AoE, and then it restores the HP of melee heroes with the lowest current HP. So her just active ability is going to be healing any melee hero, which is a warrior or an assassin. Tanks might also apply to that. So if they have the lowest HP, it's going to restore equal to 100% of Joan's attack. And then her abilities here, you see I didn't upgrade this one. It doesn't really increase the healing, it just increases her damage, and Joan isn't a huge damage dealer. She'll still benefit from this, but I don't see it as a necessity because I kind of use her as a support hero to heal. So her trait evolution on this one is whenever she casts this skill, it generates additional healing within the banner area. So it restores all allied heroes within range. So basically, whenever her banner is on the field, whenever she casts this active ability, it's going to heal everyone else in the banner range as well. So it plays on her ultimate, so the location of the banner is kind of important. This other active ability deals 180% attack and then also has vertigo, so she has additional CC on here. You can increase her damage if you want. She also has a trait upgrade that restores 50% energy immediately and grants 100 energy that will be distributed among warrior heroes. So whenever she enters the battlefield, whenever the battle starts, she puts that initial banner down. So what's going to happen is Joan's going to restore 50 energy, and then she's going to grant 100 energy distributed amongst all warriors that's within that banner range. Very strong active ability from Joan. So her passive is an increase to crit and then also some bonus damage. And then as you get up from Immortal 2, Immortal 4, and Immortal 5, her healing actually increases, which is a really nice upgrade. So Immortal 2 is a pretty big boost to Joan as a healer. She's already a pretty good support without Immortal 2, but whenever she gets up to Immortal 2, I'd say that's pretty strong, as well as her energy regen rate is increased by 5%, so she's going to be able to recast her banners pretty often after Immortal 2. She then has a passive that says all melee heroes within her banner receive 5% less damage. You upgrade that up to 10%, and then while resonating, which is that second part of the banner, after you first place it, you heal, and then when it's resonating, that's where you boost your warrior heroes' attack and their movement speed. So then while resonating, warrior heroes within the banner's range receive an extra % damage reduction. So just as you see, she's a great great free hero. You would think as a free hero she isn't very good, but with warriors being the best class in my opinion, and getting Joan as a free hero with all of these great supports to the most important class, I think you can see how she's really, really good. So let's take a look at her exclusive weapon. So whenever she places her banner for the first time, like whenever the battle starts, she grants 10% attack and armor to all allied heroes within that banner's range. So everyone just gets a boost to attack and armor right at the beginning for 5 seconds. Additionally, if you upgrade her weapon, it increases the turbo bonus from 10% to 15%. That's an okay little bonus. I wouldn't say it's too impactful. The third upgrade is for every 3 seconds warrior heroes battle inside the banner range, they gain a stack of what is now honor. So every time that they're in the range of her banner, if they're in there for 3 seconds, they get that honor stack. And then the honor stack increases their attack and armor by 1%, and it can stack up to 15. So if you stay within her banner, they're going to get an additional attack and defense upgrade by 15% at most, which is pretty strong. So the fourth upgrade is when Joan and warrior heroes defeat an enemy. Whenever they're inside the banner, they gain an additional stack of honor. And then if they defeat somebody who's inflicted with cowardice, it grants them 2 stacks. And then all warriors within the banner's range restore 8% of their lost HP. So anytime you kill somebody, whenever her weapon is upgraded to Fortification 6, you're going to get stacks of honor, which, as we've seen, increase your armor and your attack, and you're going to restore 8% of your HP. Wow, that's pretty strong. That's a really strong Fortification 6 for warriors for sure. And then the last upgrade is it increases the allied hero's attack and armor bonuses to 15% whenever you place it for the first time instead of 10%. So that is, I mean, that's good, but I would say Fortification rank 6 is certainly the most important. So that's Joan. And again, at the end of the video here, I'll just talk about team formations because this applies to all areas of the game. They're literally used everywhere. So I'm not going individually and saying, oh, this person's good here, because they're good everywhere. All right, so our last 2 heroes are Guan Yu and Benson. One of them is a regular SSR, and the other one is a collection SSR, as we talked about in yesterday's video. Much harder to get, much harder to build. But I will say that these 2 heroes, in my opinion, are the 2 best heroes in the entire game. So, if you're going to prioritize a hero, you should 100% choose Guan Yu. He is the most important character for account progression. He will be used in every single area of the game, and he alone can take you to crazy levels that you never thought you were able to pass. Even just him. And then using some SRs for additional damage or whatever. But we are going to talk about him. As I said, he is one of the best characters in the game. You know, arguably the best. I still think Benson is a little bit better, but it's much easier to fully upgrade Guan Yu than it is Benson. So he kind of wins on that regard. The problem is he will need Immortal. Some would even argue he needs Immortal too, but I think regular Immortal is good enough. But his weapon will need Fortification 6 to really unlock his full potential. And if you can do that, again, like, you will have to invest little in other SSRs and progress, you know, almost the same amount as other people that are investing in a bunch of different heroes if you prioritize Guan Yu. So, with that caveat out of the way, let's talk about him. So he has this ultimate ability where he deals 500% attack to enemies that are around him, and then he enters into this guardian state for 10 seconds. And when he's in this guardian state, his attacks deal 230% attack damage to all enemies in an area, so he's doing like an additional AoE up to 230% of his attack. The range of the other active skills increases, so his active skills that we'll see here next, the range that they hit is increased. And then the duration of the Guardian State is reset whenever he casts his ultimate again in the Guardian State. So basically, he stays in the Guardian State, and then whenever you cast your ultimate, he pops back out of it, okay? And then pops back in. So his upgrades is the AoE damage from, his original kind of spinny rotation of the 500% attack is increased all the way up to 800%. He then gains an upgrade to his trait where he enters this Guardian pose, and he forms what they call a crescent domain around himself for 5 seconds, and it inflicts cowardice on everyone that's in the domain. And we've already seen a couple times, some real benefits to cowardice, not just on Joan, but also on Bobo and Warren. So inflicting cowardice to a large group is really strong. And then while he's in the Guardian State, he deals 10% more damage to people in cowardice, which he's already inflicting on somebody with this upgrade to his trait. And it just talks about how cowardice reduces attack and crit. So here's his active ability, one of them, which we've seen from his ultimate will have a wider range on who he hits. So here it says Guan Yu knocks up all enemies ahead for a short period of time and deals 240% attack. So a very small crowd control just kind of stops him for a second. And then while he's in the Guardian State from his ultimate, the skill range increases and the damage increases. So instead of dealing 240%, he'll deal 380%. So when he first ultimates and he's in the Guardian State, all this stuff is going to increase, and then it shows the increase in damage for both when he's out of the Guardian State and in with the upgrades to his skills. Then with his trait increase, he inflicts cowardice on all enemies. So he's just inflicting cowardice on his active skill, and he's inflicting cowardice on his ultimate skill as well. So a lot of people are going to have cowardice. You're seeing why he's kind of so strong. He has tons of AoE abilities, and he's inflicting cowardice to keep himself alive. So his second active ability deals 330% attack to everyone around him. And then when he's in the Guardian State, he recovers HP. So self-sustain, self-healing, very, very strong in this game. Not many people have it. Some people have shields, but Guan Yu does have HP recovery. And as you increase it, you get additional attack multipliers as well as healing. So then his trait upgrade here is whenever he casts a skill outside of the Guardian State. So if you're casting it, before you ult, or if you ult it a second time and you kind of phase in and out of the Guardian State, he will recover HP up to 150% of his attack. So even if he's not in the Guardian State, this active ability is going to be healing him up. It'll heal him up a little bit more with the upgrades to his skills here and when he's in the Guardian State. But if you have this trait upgraded, he's going to be healing no matter what. And then it says the cooldown of this skill is immediately reset after he casts Crescent Blast, which is his ultimate, I believe. Yes, so once he casts his ultimate, this skill automatically resets. So if you used it outside, before you ulted, let's say you start the match, you activate this ability, and then you ult. As soon as you come out of your ultimate, you're going to be able to activate this again and heal again. So his passive is crit percentage and damage reduction, and that can get upgraded all the way up to 20%. Okay, so the damage reduction stays the same, but his ultimate damage actually increases. He does get a damage reduction in Arena, but most people don't care about that. So this passive, in my opinion, this is why I don't think that Immortal 2 is as important on Guan Yu, because his ultimate damage isn't like a huge multiplier. So I really don't think it's worth pulling additional copies. I think you should just focus on a different hero, but that's my opinion. So then he has this really strong passive called Heart Guard. And it says, upon taking a fatal hit, Guan Yu disengages for a short period of time and casts Enhanced Gale Crescent once. So Gale Crescent, I think we've seen this. it's somewhere around here. Oh, yeah. So it's this active ability that heals him, right? So whenever he is about to die, he stops, activates the ability that does an AoE and then heals him, but it inflicts vertigo on everybody. So it's stunning people and healing himself up, giving him time to heal, and then he gains a shield equal to 500% of his attack, which can be upgraded to 8 for 5 seconds. So he puts up this huge shield while he's healing himself, and then he's basically getting himself back up to a level to where this passive can activate again over time. So then the trait effect, when it's upgraded, it says the shield absorption increases by 15% of his max HP. So this is like a huge boost to his shield. And if the shield isn't broken, then he recovers HP up to 50% after the shield is gone, which is 5 seconds. So if he can sustain the damage to his shield for 5 seconds, he'll recover half of his HP. So huge. Tons of AoE CC and tons of self-sustain with healing. So he's already strong. But let's take a look at the exclusive weapon here, because it gets even crazier. So when Guan Yu is in the Guardian state, he obtains Moon Armor. So this increases his damage reduction by 8%. So it's not an increase to his armor or his HP, he just gets straight damage reduction by 8%. The second upgrade, he also gives himself a turbo boost, so he's activating his skills more often, and we've seen his active skills are very strong because they have cowardice, they have crowd control, and then they also have self-heal. Really important. The third upgrade is while he's in the Guardian state, he maintains the Crescent Domain and boosts Moon Armor effect by 25%. So that Crescent Domain is that area where he's inflicting the cowardice on people. And then the Moon Armor is the 25% instead of 8%, which is like really high. 25 straight damage reduction. Pretty good. So then his F6, okay? Or his fourth upgrade. It says, the Azure Dragon circles around and pulls enemies within range towards the center of the cyclone and inflicts vertigo on them, knocking them back for 1.5 seconds. So his ultimate ability, this is really poor wording. His ultimate ability pulls everyone close to him, inflicts them with vertigo for 1.5 seconds. Now this might not seem like a big deal, but you have to remember, whenever he pulls all of these people in, he's then automatically activating his active abilities, which are then knocking people up again, dealing more CC, taking them out of the game more, and you're recovering HP. And you're inflicting cowardice on all the people that are close to him. So this upgrade is huge. On top of that, it also puts all of those enemies that he just gathered in a certain area to be hit by, maybe your rogue heroes that have splash damage, or your other warriors that have AoE, or your elemental heroes that do damage in like a certain area. So just a fantastic character. We'll talk about him some more at the end of the video when we're going over team composition, but fantastic. You should invest all your resources in him. He should be your top priority for sure. All right, so our last hero is Benson. He is a collection SSR, which means you can only get him by collection tickets, which are very pay to win. So take Benson with a grain of salt, which is a bummer because I'm really going to sell him because he's very, very strong. I'm telling you, he's the best hero in the game, in my opinion, but at what cost, right? Okay, so like Grace, who we talked about in the Elemental video, if you guys haven't, not Elemental, sorry, support video. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. But like her, he also has a leadership ability. This one is for warriors. So anytime he is in the same team, whenever the battle starts, he grants this Dragon Might effect to all warrior heroes, where it increases their damage dealt by 10% and they take less damage by 10%. So just him being in the team and starting the match, all of your warriors deal 10% more damage and they will take 10% just throughout. It doesn't have a second counter on it or anything. It just stays static, which is crazy. So whenever you upgrade that, when he's in the Storm Dragon form, which we'll talk about his kit, it increases his own Dragon Might effect by 15%. So whenever he goes into his Dragon form, he actually increases his damage dealt, and he takes less damage by 15%, but it's only him. But then that gets upgraded even more when he's Immortal 1. It goes up to 20% increase to damage dealt and 15% damage reduction. And then it affects all other warriors at Immortal 3 by 10% additional, but he has to be in the Storm Dragon form. So this leadership skill, just, it's amazing, right? Just boost all of your other warriors. We've already talked about warriors being the most important class, so it is what it is. All right, so his ultimate ability. So the first thing is it has a passive. So he has two forms. One is a human form and one is the dragon form that you see here. So anytime he's in the human form, he gains a stack of fury every time he casts a skill. And then for every 10% HP that he loses, he gains another stack. And that stacks up to 9 times. So what fury does is it boosts his stats whenever he's in his dragon form. And it says Benson transforms into the Storm Dragon and casts a wind breath in the selected fan-shaped area. So what the ultimate does is it turns him into a dragon, and the first thing he does is he does an AoE ability doing 650% multiplier of his attack to enemies and then knocks them back. So it kind of pushes them back, doesn't really inflict any kind of stun or anything, it just pushes them back. And then it says Benson will enhance himself based on the stacks of fury. Each stack of fury can increase his damage dealt in the dragon form by 3%, and it goes up to 27, which is the 9 stacks that they say that you can achieve here. So important thing to note here is it's raw damage. It's not based on his attack. It's just an increased damage, which is always nice. His Storm Dragon form lasts 12 seconds, so he's in that for 12 seconds. And then for the duration, he deals more damage to enemies with cowardice and gains super armor. Okay, so a lot to unpack there. He basically he starts in this human form. If he gets hit a lot, whenever he transforms into the dragon, he's going to be doing way more damage. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. You want your Benson to get hit a lot so he can deal more damage in the dragon form. Because he's just doing a crap ton more damage. The upgrades increase his AoE that he does as soon as he goes into the dragon form. So his upgrade to his trait, he immediately gains 4 stacks of fury. So the likelihood of you having 9 stacks by the time you cast the dragon form is very high. And then each stack also increases his turbo of Storm Dragon. So he's going to be activating his he's going to be activating his dragon abilities more often. And then while he's also in the Storm Dragon form, he deals 10% damage to enemies with cowardice. So he's increasing his damage on top of what his original ultimate already did. So here are his active abilities. When he's in his human form, he converts 20% of his HP to generate a shield. So he basically takes 20% of his HP away, generates a shield for 8 seconds. This is really good because his ultimate ability, as we saw, his passive, every 10% that he loses of his health, he gains a stack of fury. So this active ability automatically gives him 2 stacks of fury. So then when he's in his dragon form, he has an active ability that deals 350% attack to everybody that's kind of in front of him. So then he has some upgrades where he gets an increase in armor, and then his basic damage increases, and then same thing, just another increase to his armor and increase to his damage. 1 in human form, and then 1 for his Storm Dragon. So more armor for human, more damage for Storm Dragon. And then you have an upgrade where the shield has 240% attack base absorption, so it's just an even bigger shield. And then when he's in his Storm Dragon, he actually can inflict cowardice on people. So it's increasing his damage to them while he's in Storm Dragon form, which is from his ultimate. So with his ultimate, it says right at the bottom, he inflicts more damage on people with cowardice. If you have his trait upgraded, he deals 10% more damage to them. And then whenever you have his skills upgraded, his trait upgraded, he'll be able to inflict cowardice instead of relying on other people. So his second active ability deals 350% attack to people around him in the human form. In the dragon form, he deals 400% attack to everybody in a large area and then inflicts terror on them, which is a new effect that we've seen. It basically makes them run away. It's a version of pushback. So then you get increased damage from all of his skill upgrades on this active ability. And then his trait gets upgraded to restores 5% of his own HP. So anytime he's dealing damage or just activating this ability, he just gains back 5% of his health. And then whenever he's in the Storm Dragon form, he deals 8% of the enemy's lost HP damage. So this is a max HP 8%, which is always strong in games like this, and it scales well for bosses. And says the damage doesn't exceed 200% of his attack. So then his passive, this is also why Benson's really strong, is he has lifesteal. So he's constantly healing himself back up with 6%, which is a small percentage, but you see here on his third upgrade, which is Immortal 5, his lifesteal goes up to 10%, which is pretty good. It's actually increased by 10%, so it goes up to 16. You also get damage boost and damage reduction if he's upgraded to Immortal 2. All right, and then he has this passive. So when he's in his human form, his normal attack has a 30% chance of dealing extra damage equal to 80%, and he gains a stack of fury upon triggering extra damage. So tons of ways to just activate fury, and you want those 9 stacks, so whenever he goes in the Storm Dragon form, he's just doing a crap ton of damage. And then in his Storm Dragon form, when he goes back to his human form, he recovers 15% HP. Well, he recovers HP equal to 15% of the damage dealt. So, essentially, you get all of those stacks of fury on Benson, right? Then he goes into the Storm Dragon form. He's doing a lot of damage, and the more damage he does there whenever he comes out of the Storm Dragon form, he's going to heal equal to 15% of the damage that he dealt. So it's really important to maximize your stacks of fury. Also, whenever he takes fatal damage, whenever he's in the Storm Dragon form, he'll be immune to death and then immediately go back to human form and trigger, the recovery effect that they just mentioned here. And it can only be activated one time per battle, so it doesn't reset. So if he's about to die, you can cast your ultimate. He'll go into his Storm Dragon form, and he will not die, but he will go back to his human form. So then the upgrades, the trigger chance to grant the additional damage goes up by 50%, and then the HP restored is up to 450% of Benson's attack instead of 300%. And then if it's upgraded in his human form, his attack speed is increased by 15% and gains 2 stacks of fury whenever he gains the extra damage instead of 1, and then it recovers an additional 10% of his max HP from the 15, so up to 25% additional. And then when returning to the human form, it increases the extra recovery of 20% of the max HP. So a lot of self-healing whenever he has that evolution upgrade. Now let's take a look at his equipment. All right. So Benson, on the first equipment unlock, will unlock a skill called Storm Judgment whenever he goes into his dragon mode, where he flaps his wings and deals 200% attack damage to all enemies. So he's doing that big multiplier with an additional attack on top of it, which equals 200% of his attack. So then he also, when he knocks back people on the next upgrade, he inflicts vertigo for a half a second. So he's pushing people back, and then they're stunned. So it's like an extra form of CC on top of what he already had. His third upgrade deals additional damage equal to 8% of the enemy's max HP. So again, this additional skill that he unlocks is going to do a lot of damage to like bosses or higher end waves whenever you really progress in the game. And then his F6, so his 4th upgrade, increases the duration of his dragon form by 4 seconds. So instead of 12 seconds, he's in the dragon form for 16 seconds. And it increases his base damage. So big boost. And then his last upgrade is Storm Judgment. The basic damage goes from 200% attack to 600% of his attack. And it extends the vertigo for another half second. Pretty strong. So as you can see, just like with Grace, the collection heroes just do so many things. So Benson is just a tank. But okay, that's all of the warrior heroes. But let's take a look at how you would, build a team composition with warrior heroes. So we're going to go into Nightmare, okay? Now this is a really good team for warriors. You have these 3 raccoon guys in the back, and then you have a tank hero up top. So these guys are going to summon a bunch of little raccoons. So you want a tank hero to kind of be in here to soak up that damage. I have a rogue in the back, which will be protected by our Guan Yu. We're going to use an assassin, which we'll talk about maybe in 2 or 3 videos from now. Because this assassin can actually jump in the back and attack these raccoons, get past this guy. And then we'll also bring in, let's just bring in Benson as well, because he's another tank hero. Warrior hero. So he's in the second team, but we'll bring him in here because I'm only going to show you the first team. Okay? All right, so we will take this off auto because I want to show you these skills. And then we will decrease the speed. Okay, so here we go. So Guan Yu, right, he has those active abilities to heal himself. Same thing with Benson with the lifesteal, which we kind of talked about. Once you have the ultimate unlocked, here, this is where Guan Yu's F6 weapon is able to target anybody that's in his range. He'll spin, he'll bring them together, and he'll inflict vertigo on them. So here's the spin, see? And then they're stunned. Now, Benson, as you see here, he put up that big shield on himself, and he's taken all that damage. And you can see right here that little 9 has the stacks of fury. So whenever we go into this dragon form, he's going to push them back and inflict vertigo because we have the exclusive weapon. And he's going to be dealing a lot more damage. So here, he's going to turn into his dragon and then push them back, do the AoE, and inflict the stuns. And now he's just dealing a lot more damage. And that's basically it. But the reason why tank heroes, I keep saying tank, warrior heroes are so important is because of that. You are able to protect your whole back line here as long as your warrior heroes up front can stop your enemies from getting from your front line. And Betty, who's a hero that we'll talk about probably in tomorrow's video, is a huge burst damage hero, which I'll show on this hero right here, this enemy. If she can be protected, she can just snipe and just melt people's bar. Like, she gets one ultimate off and she takes down a full enemy on her own in nightmare mode, towards the end of the end game. But it's all thanks to, your warrior heroes that are stunning people, that are doing damage themselves. That's why warriors are just so good. You can run 2 warriors in each team. You don't need any tanks. You don't need any healers, especially if you have Guan Yu. Most people won't have Benson, but Guan Yu can heal himself up, keep stunning people, while the rest of your back row is just picking people off. So, anyway, that's all I have for the video, guys. I hope it was helpful. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.